This is Mayur. Welcome to ML Works. Today we'll be discussing what is unsupervised learning and the different tasks that fall under unsupervised learning and the various algorithms that will help us in doing unsupervised learning. So first and foremost, what is unsupervised learning? Unsupervised learning is a technique where you have a data set with no labels. So consider you have this data set, okay, and let us for a second we just think that we don't know what all these things are present inside this input data. Okay, so what will happen is in unsupervised learning, these objects which are red in color, right, these objects will be grouped together because these will create a separate pattern. Okay, unsupervised learning tries to find the pattern. So these four objects, which we know has what apple, okay, will fall under one category. And similarly, these three objects, green color one. So these are also will form a separate pattern, and unsupervised learning will try to what capture those details. And next we have something these yellow color objects, which is mango, I guess. Okay, so this will create, this is another pattern which the unsupervised learning try to find using an algorithm. So unsupervised learning tries to find a pattern in your data set using an algorithm, unsupervised learning algorithm, and try to group them together as it is done here. So all these objects which are together, which are similar or dissimilar, will be grouped together and separated against each other. Yeah. Okay. So that is what ultimately what unsupervised learning does. Actually, it tries to find a pattern in your data set and it will cluster them or group them together. So once that is done, there are various techniques or various kind of tasks which you can with on top of which you can apply unsupervised learning. Okay, so there are like something called as clustering, which is the most basic form of unsupervised learning everyone knows about or talks about, and there is something called as association rule, and there is something also called as dimensionality reduction. Okay, so what is clustering? I'll just say a couple of like lines or what couple of sentences on each of these kind of tasks, right? So in clustering, what we do is consider you have, let's see, if you have something like what, some bunch of points, and you have this bunch of points. So what the clustering will do is, clustering kind of algorithms, what it will try to do, it will try to find out, okay, find out which of these data points should be together or together actually whose patterns are similar to each other. They will be clustered together. For example, these 3 points are nearest to each other, probably they are like similar to each other, and again these three are again looking similar to each other, so this 3 or this 4, okay, all these which are looking together, they will be grouped together. Okay, so clustering tries to find the similarity and the dissimilarity against each of those data points and try to cluster them together. And similarly, there is also called as association ruling. So for association ruling, it is probably if you have used Amazon, okay, you might have seen like when you buy a product, there is something, a bunch of recommendation goes on at the back end, which will tell you if you buy something called as what, a table, you will probably buy a chair actually. So that will be your what associated product with table. For example, consider uh, somebody liked user, you have user 1 and user 2, okay, and movie 1 and movie 2. Okay, this is not working fine. Okay, movie 2 you have, and then there is something called as what, inception. You consider movie 1 is what, the user 1 watched movie Inception, okay, and then Interstellar, both the movies, and the person user 2 has watched Inception. So these two person have watched one movie, among them, which is common among them. So probably the user 2 will also get associated with what, when you are recommending, it will also what recommend Interstellar to the particular user. So this association rule is created between these movies. So if somebody watches movie what Inception, probably you will also recommend them Interstellar. So that is one of the what unsupervised learning technique. And then we have something called as dimensionality reduction. Dimensionality reduction. Consider you have a data set with 1,000 features. Okay. Now, not all the features will be important for what predicting your label or finding the pattern. Okay, so since it is unsupervised learning, we have to find the pattern, and not all the 1,000 features are required for what finding the pattern. So in dimensional reduction, using unsupervised algorithms, what we'll do is we'll try to convert our 1,000 features into 2 or 3 or some set of what principal components. Okay, some number. Okay, principal components using algorithm called as like PCA. So how it will look like in general, right? Consider you have some data set. Okay, some data points are like this and some are this. Okay, now instead of what this is a two-dimensional data points, you have consider x1 and this is x2. So when you apply PCA, what will happen is since this data is distributed along this direction, okay, it will try to capture that direction alone. Okay, it will try to what capture the variance along the direction and try to replicate that into, consider like a two-dimension will turn out into a single dimension or a line. Okay, here it will be represented like this. Okay, so this is how the dimension reduction will happen. This is from 2 dimension to 1 dimension using PCA. So these are unsupervised learning techniques which will help us in what reducing the dimension of your data set also. That's it for this video, and I'll be going in detail with respect to what the kind of algorithms we have under each of these techniques: clustering, association rule, and dimension reduction. Thank you.